In response to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendation, two major Canadian universities, the University of Winnipeg and Lakehead University in Thunder Bay, are requiring all of their students to take a 3-credit course in Indigenous culture or history starting in the fall of 2016. This move is meant to combat racism and foster reconciliation in these university cities where many Indigenous peoples reside. The question of whether there should be an Indigenous credit requirement has spread to Trent University, which has the oldest Indigenous Studies department in Canada. Brendan Campbell, Indigenous Student Commissioner, in conjunction with Elaine Spywalk, re-elected president of the Trent University Students Association, have put forward a motion to establish a half-credit requirement in Indigenous Studies for all students. Should Trent University implement a requirement for all of its students to take a half-credit course in Indigenous Studies to graduate?
No, I don't think that Trent University should implement a mandatory half credit for students. I think that it might impact students who have already full timetables, especially within the science department and within students who have just generally full timetables and don't have a lot of choice. By forcing students into a course that they don't necessarily want to take, they might not take the content seriously, they might make the class less enjoyable for those who actually want to be there, and they might not take sensitive material seriously and might offend some people within the class.
I feel that there should be some form of mandatory Indigenous Studies credit in university in your first year coming in. I feel like I'm not sure if a half credit is enough, and I think that the format of the half credit is needs to be rethought.
I believe that depending on your major or area of study, that should be mandatory. I mean, history majors, if you're going to study the history of Canada, absolutely you should know about Indigenous cultures, but if I'm going to be taking forensic science, then I don't believe that Indigenous culture will have anything to do with my degree.
So I guess my answer is yes and no. As somebody who's an instructor and working towards being a professor of Indigenous Studies, I get really concerned about how that is going to happen. So I think it's important that we have Indigenous content in all our courses, and so I think a mandatory Indigenous Studies credit actually can cause more harm, because I think a lot of students feeling forced into something may have sort of reaction to it, and I feel like I already deal with a lot of people a lot of ignorance in my classroom, a lot of difficulties in my classroom, and I worry about the people who will have to teach these mandatory Indigenous Studies credits, which typically we see first year courses being put to women, to Indigenous women, and so being put in classrooms where people don't want to be there, it can be really difficult.
No, I do not think they should be a mandatory class. I am a science student and I have enough of my own required classes that I have to do, and I find in my experience that you don't care about them as much as you do the ones that you get to choose. So I think it would only ruin my experience and the other students' experience that want to be there.
Definitely, because as an institution has always led the way and been proud of that, the next step is ensuring that no one comes to Trent without having to confront the most difficult questions surrounding Canada's relationship to its original people.
Should Trent University implement a requirement for all of its students to take a half-credit course in Indigenous Studies to graduate?